contribute at any time. A is for Avan, whose scales could not be pierced. He flooded the harbours, set town ablaze, terrorizing those he unearthed. I could tell you a lot about the Avan, but I want to get to it. I'll be forever here. B is for Bendigeidfran, who laid a bridge for his weary army to run. In his last breath, the giant fell, sending the army back to Ireland. I'll tell you a little bit about this. Bendigeidfran was a king, chief of the tribes of the island of Britain, and he was a giant. They said that he was so big, no house could shelter him, no ship could carry him. And when the king of Ireland, Matholwch had married Bendigeidfran's sister, Branwen, and he abused her. When Bendigeidfran found out that his sister was being abused, he gathered a vast army in 700 ships to sail across to Ireland. He walked across. No ship could carry him. He walked across to Ireland. They had great battles. The Irish cheated, by the way. The Irish had the cauldron of rebirth, and anyone who died could be thrown into this cauldron and would come back out alive. So, as time went on, as you can imagine, the Welsh didn't have that privilege, so things were going badly. But the cauldron was broken. It was broken by Bendigeidfran's brother, who jumped live into the cauldron. And the cauldron, because he was live, tried to throw him out. But he held himself in there, and the cauldron burst, and so did his heart. But then, just before the final battle, the Welsh were retreating from the Irish. You understand I say the word retreating, not running away. They were retreating from the Irish. They came to a big ravine, and they couldn't get across. Bendigeidfran laid his body across the ravine so that his army could use his body as a bridge across to safety. And ever since that time, we've had a saying in Welsh, Tra bod ben byd bont. If you would be a leader, be a bridge. And there are a great many connotations to that. But let's move on. C, or in Welsh we say ek. Ek. C is for Coblanau, who helps the miner find his ore. But when the cavern shakes, the rocks will slide, something he will surely ignore. The Coblanau are the Welsh version of dwarves, living underground. They would help the miners. They are someone that is. Are they familiar in Cornwall?
What's the difference between a collier and a miner?
I beg your pardon?
What's the difference between a collier and a miner? The Welsh always say, I'm not a miner, I'm a collier.
That's right.
Yeah.
Because a miner could be going for tin or silver or gold. A collier goes after coal. That's the thing. Yeah. That's the big difference. A collier goes for the coal.
You say, I'm not a miner. Coal miners are not miners, they're colliers.
They're colliers, that's right. And they, now there was a thing, they were known as, in English, in the English mines, they were referred to as knockers. The same, because you could hear them knocking. And they would warn you of danger. That's not as far-fetched as it might seem. Because in the old days when you would mine with a pickaxe, let me backtrack. Coal, as you know, is made from compressed vegetation. Tightly compressed vegetation will contain pockets of methane gas. When the pocket of methane gas is struck, then there's a violent explosion. And methane is also very flammable. When the days when you were mining with a pick, when you're cutting up the coal with a pick, you could actually hear knocking. The knocking was the pressure of the methane gas as you're getting closer to it. So the miners would know there's methane there. If you ignore the knockers, then the rocks will slide. Remember? From the back of your throat. Arthur Achai. Arthur or Arthur. Achai. Arthur is for, Ech is for Arthur Achai, who grew up together to play. The brothers came upon a sword in a stone that little Arthur carried away. And we all know the story of that, how Arthur was the foster brother to Kay, and how in his innocence he took the sword of kings out of the stone, and so became the rightful king. There's always, in all these stories, there's always a glimmer of truth. Think about this for a moment. You all know of that. You all know of King Arthur's sword as Excalibur. That's the French version. In Welsh, it's Caled Wolfter. Caled Wolfter means hard lightning. Hard lightning, a meteor. Now, when a meteor makes its way all the way down to Earth, that means it's made mostly of iron. If you know how to smelt the iron and make a sword out of that, you have literally drawn a sword from the stone. And those people who knew how to smelt iron and make their weapons from iron ore are going to be able to vanquish those around them. You could literally take a sword from a stone and become king if you know how to do it. There's a glimmer of truth in all of these stories. Peel back the layers and you find something else underneath. And I've only peeled back one layer, by the way. There's a lot more to go if you just look. No,
3 o'clock.
The letter D, or in Welsh we say Ed,
I think it's 9:30 or something.
is for Dawn, who raised her sons to watch over the fielding land. They battled Fleur's flock till old and grey, taking control of their command. Dawn was a Welsh goddess, the mother of many other gods. And there was a feud between her children, the descendants of her children. There became a great feud. And they battled over many things. The flock of Fleur, one of her children, her son was Fleur ap Llediaeth. Fleur ap Llediaeth was chief of all the tribes of Britain at one time. He was the father of Bendigeidfran, whom I earlier mentioned. And there were feuding between various factions. Let's move on. Oh, do you know, that's true. The artwork in this book is fantastic. I'm very sorry, I should have shown you this. The artwork is fantastic. Different illustrators have illustrated all the pages of this book, and it's truly worth looking at. I mentioned in the preface that they've all been touched by inspiration in their own unique way. Yeah, I should show you those. A double D is one letter in Welsh, pronounced, I think I mentioned earlier, like the TH in bird. Is for Dry Coat, who chased away his white foe, but the young Myrddin found them buried in a magic pool. This is the legend, what is known as the Proffwydoliaeth Myrddin, the prophecy of Merlin. I should explain something. Myrddin, in the old legends, it was Myrddin. When Geoffrey of Monmouth, who was Norman French, translated these stories into Norman French, and so we get the legends of Arthur that we're more familiar with, he called Arthur became Arturus or Arthur. Medrawd became Modred, and so on. When it came to Myrddin, he had a problem. You see, in Norman French, Myrdinas means chitty. So he had a problem. So instead of Myrddin, we've got Merlin. That's what he translated it as. So but the Myrddin, I should explain. Anyway, this is the story of his prophecy. Is that as a young man, he was taken. The Roman governor, after the Romans left, the governor of the island of Britain was known in English as Vortigern, in Welsh Gwrtheir. And he wanted to build a castle. But he found that a corner of the castle was collapsing. And without going into too much of the story, because I don't want to take up all of it in one story, the young Taliesin, who was to become Myrddin, the young Taliesin said, dig down deep. And when they dug down, they found a lake. And the lake was causing the tower to collapse. In the middle of the lake were two dragons fighting. There was a white dragon and a red dragon. They were fighting. Twice, the white dragon caught the red dragon in the corner and seemed like it would be defeated. But then, eventually, the red dragon overcame the white dragon, and the white dragon was chased away. The prophecy of the Merlin is that the white dragon were the Anglo-Saxons, the invading horde. The red dragon was the indigenous people of the island, the Welsh. And he said that though the Saxons may appear to be winning and overcoming, eventually it is the red dragon that will overcome. That's the prophecy of Merlin. And that is why we have the red dragon on our flag today, the emblem of the fact.
And that is also why you still have the bedtime story of King Arthur and his knights asleep in a cave somewhere in Wales, waiting for the proper moment to rise again and throw the Saxons out of England.
That's right, that's right. When we're at our worst moment is when he will rise again, Arthur will rise again. He is called the once and future king, is how Arthur is referred to. Thank you. The letter E. A is for Iddfon. A is for Iddfon, who roam the valleys and groves. Their approach may slow the shepherd, but the sheep go running in droves. Yeah, you can't talk about Wales without talking about sheep. The Iddfon are the Welsh version of the fairies, the fairy folk. It's what we call the elves, actually. They're elves. One thing about the Welsh tradition of fairy folk, elves, you find that they're often spoken of in other traditions as being little people or creatures that fly about with wings, cute little things. In the Welsh tradition, elves look pretty much like you and me. You wouldn't be able to tell the difference. They come and they walk amongst us, and they look just like anyone else. There might even be one of them amongst us here today. But that's more of their tradition, except that for them, in their world, time moves a little bit strangely. And anyone from our world, if you should journey into the realm of the Iddfon, when you come back, you may find a very different world. Because though you may have been there, what to you may seem moments, centuries may pass in a world.